Humbling to see how many people show up to listen to these crazy things that I have to say about health and performance. So thanks for having me again.
Welcome, everyone. We're just waiting to connect to social media, and then we'll go live with Dr. Colin Robertson. So this is part of our series with doctors in wellness, and they're all passionate about improving lives through evidence-based nutrition and wellness consulting. So the more we can inform and educate everyone, the better it will be for the world. Because as you know, we're all here to inspire change in life. So it's wonderful to see you all. Dr. Colin, welcome, welcome, welcome. And welcome to you all over the world, wherever you may be. As Rob said, we're going to New Zealand, the US, we've got Australia, we've got China, lots of other people in Asia. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Just waiting to connect to social media, everyone. And Dr. Colin is all about you are what you absorb. It's going to be a fantastic series of events. And Rob's got some fabulous speakers lined up for the next 4 weeks. So it's wonderful to have you all here from all over the world.
Well, welcome, guys. And again, thank you so much for your time, energy, and effort on getting online tonight. We've got the world covered here tonight. Dr. Colin Robertson, all the way from the UK in, Great Britain, as they would say. And go the Great Britons as a sort of tapping on the Olympians, for gold medals. So it's great to see some activity down there. But I have to say, Australia is doing outstanding, my friend. But tonight we're covering from New Zealand to the UK all the way to the USA, guys. So we are a global call as we take this call to the world to share this incredible information. Dr. Colin Robertson, thank you so much for coming online tonight and sharing some of the great tidbits about 3 key things that I believe is critical to us right now. That's number 1, the heart. Number 2, your immune system. And number 3, your brain. I know that you've been doing a lot of work with Zinzino, but what I want to do first up is just for the first minute, because I always like my speakers just to give a 1-minute backstory on themselves so people can be informed as the guests that are listening tonight on where you actually come from and then when you hit the Zinzino path.
1 minute. Robert, have you ever heard me speak before? I don't think I can do anything in a minute. I'm going to time myself. So yeah, my background really spans now 27 years of working with everything from clinical exercise physiology, so working in a big district general hospital, supporting people who've had cancer, cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, musculoskeletal conditions, all the way through to supporting some of our greatest athletes to achieving gold medals, taken part in Rugby World Cups, you name it. I've trained people to get to the top of Everest, row across the Atlantic Ocean, take part in marathon dressage. And the way I sum it up is I say, if you have a condition that's trying to kill you, if you're going to go to a part of the world that will try to kill you, or if you're going to put an effort in that will take everything you've got, then you typically get somebody like me involved to keep you alive so that you can thrive and do the best that you possibly can. Right now, I function more as a knowledge broker. So I take from the evidence base, from the research, I'm either contributing or interpreting it, and I make that usable to populations, particularly around nutrition and health.
Look, and the important factor from my side, okay, Dr. Colin, is I'm very, very inspired because you did have the opportunity, okay, on visiting this great country of Australia. Could you just reflect on that for 1 minute for me as well?
I've been there several times. I love Australia. I don't know why I don't live there. I was there. Most notably, I was there. I was actually last time I was there was in 2017 when I was working with some of your people over there with the NRL. But I was there in 2008 with the Ireland rugby team. I'm very proud to be of Irish origin, and we took part in the Rugby League World Cup. And we had a phenomenal time. We defied the critics. We got to the quarterfinals. And it was incredible. From the minute we touched down until we sadly departed, we had an incredible time in Australia. It was a real proud moment professionally as well that we progressed as far as we did. But I could recount tales of my times in Australia all day. I bore you to death. I love the country. Phenomenal place.
Fantastic. Fantastic, my friend. Okay, so let's talk about Zinzino. Let's talk about how when those paths crossed and you had that opportunity, okay, of looking at the company and yourself being scientific back and, you know, making sure that everything that you're looking at was exactly what it should be. Can you tell the wellness professionals online that are listening or listening to the replay about that decision on how you was first perceiving what the company would be like versus to once you opened the door and looked inside and saw what it really was? Give me the difference between perception and reality.
Yeah, that's a great way. I'm inherently cynical and skeptical. I'm a scientist. I'm a researcher. Until I can measure it, consistently and it repeats itself, I don't really have much faith in it. I'm not one of those people. Very scientifically orientated. And sadly, over the course of my career, and in fact my life, I have come to realize that most companies that function within the health space promise a lot and don't deliver very much. And sadly, that's been my experience. And I've been asked over the years to look at a number of different products because athletes and individuals are always looking for something that's going to make a difference to their health. And if we're talking about athletes, they're obsessed with looking for something that's going to make a difference to their performance because they want to win. So I get asked a lot, and I was actually here, I've told this story so many times, I was actually here working in my study on an epigenetics project. I to this day, I work as a part of a lot of global health strategy teams in that knowledge broker kind of position, which is taken from the research evidence and shaping really what strategies we should put in place for health. And I was working on an epigenetics project, coincidentally, which was centered on polyunsaturated fatty acids, the essential role they play in health, and how we have this global issue with regards to a deficit when it comes to the omega-3s, and particularly the marine-based omega-3s, the DHA and the EPA. So I was writing this article up, and a good friend of mine phoned me and just said, "Col, have you ever heard of a company called Zinzino?" And I said, "No, never heard of them." And he said, "Well, I've been encouraged to use their product." He said, because he's had a few health issues. He said, "What do you know about omega-3?" And I said, "Well, funnily enough, I'm doing a lot of work on omega-3. So I went and had a look, and I've told this story so many times, Robert, but I expected to spend 5 minutes, ring him back and say, it's more rubbish. It's fish oil. Fish oil doesn't work. Don't worry about it. Just keep eating really good quality fish and doing the best you can with your diet. And straight away, I knew something was different straight away because I have a series of questions. First of all, what's the claim? So what's the claim they're making? Like, how big is this going to be? The old snake oil story. Secondly, what's the process? So if I'm going to take this, how do I know it's any good? Because I can tell you anything, can't I? And then thirdly, what's in place to certify this? So first of all, the information around the balance oil, as I came to realize what it was brilliant. It was really honest. It was well grounded, didn't make wild claims, and literally told you exactly what was in it and was backed by EFSA claims with regards to what impact it can have on your health. So straight away, I thought this is really interesting because this is how 21st century food technology should be done. This is where we should be at. And then I thought, okay, so, what's the process around it? And I immediately saw the test procedure and I thought, well, that's a gimmick because you measure something, you tell someone they're terrible, and then you sell them the product to make them brilliant. But then I realized that this was a test that was managed by the Vitas labs. Now, I've got connections to Oxford University. I work with colleagues at Harvard University, Stanford, some of the best universities in the world. They all use Vitas labs. Vitas are well known. I was a lab director at the time in Greater Manchester. I know other labs that are good. So I thought, wow, so Vitas are doing this. And then I thought, right then, there could be anything in this. I'll go and have a look. And it was all informed choice, informed sport, certified, every kind of certification around it. So then I was kind of going, why have I never heard of this before? Why have I never heard it? I'm in the solutions industry. I'm trying to create and find and identify health solutions. How have I never heard of this? And that was really where the journey began. And I got invited along to some talks just to purely talk about the science. I wasn't associated with Zinzino. I've never sold a Zinzino product in my life, but I was being asked along as an independent researcher, scientist, to comment on the impact that omega-3 has and why there's a deficit and why we need to consider these things. And then that kind of gained traction until there was a mutuality. You know, Doug and Orion at Zinzino were really interested in what I did and how I did it. And I was at this point even more and more interested in Zinzino and how they went about their business. And for me, I never wanted to be a crusty old academic sitting in a room just teaching and reading information. I got into science and research and academia to make a difference, to be able to change things for the better. I've always been driven by the notion that health has been hijacked and we need to claim it back. And we need to empower people through information, education, and through solutions. We need to be able to give people an easy solution for what it is they need to fix. We need to tell them what needs to fix them, get them to have better understanding, and then we need to make that fix easy. And it's a busy world with busy lives. And there's a whole heap of issues around aquaculture and agriculture, food availability, nutrition availability, getting the diet right. And for a long time, I've said we just need simple things that work really well. And that's exactly what balanced oil is. It's a
fantastic.
In fact, it's not that simple. It's really genius, but it works really well.
Let's talk about that, okay? And first up, I just want to show the audience, guys, this is the balance test that holds the omega-3 industry accountable for the inferior products they sell on a daily basis to people out there in the consumer world. Dr. Colin, I want to talk about this test, and then I want to talk about the balanced oil and the functionality of that heart first up, okay, the greatness that it does for the heart structure, and then we're going to get into immune and the brain. So talk to the people why the balance test is so critical as part of this evidence-based nutritional world.
Well, as I said kind of at the start, in my world, if, you know, as a researcher, you measure, you observe, you measure, you evaluate, and you appraise. And we put things under repeated measure to see how consistently they hold up. And me just literally saying to somebody, you know, take this pill, it's going to make you better. It's going to improve your health. It's just really speculative. You know, there's no accountability in that. And particularly in an area around health, when we know that what we consume and the choices we make really matter, because we're either getting it right or we're not doing anything at all. So the test is vital with regard to the objectivity of it, because it empowers, first of all, the customer, I guess. I look at it in a different way because it's from a research point of view. But if you look at this purely as a customer, you know, you take the test and it empowers you to make meaningful choices about your health status. You can take that test and you can get that feedback and you can go, whatever, so what? But at least you know. Ignorance is never an excuse. Once you know where you're at, it's a measure of your red blood cell count, your blood lipid profile. It's a tiny little drop of blood on a paper sent off to Vitas. They put it through their extremely expensive analysis kit. It doesn't care who you are, where you're from, what football team you support. It just tells you your blood lipid profile and quantifies, therefore, the associated level of systemic stress and inflammation. It tells us something about our omega-3 index. And anybody who's listening now, you know, you don't need to be a scientist. Go on to Google Scholar, just Google Scholar, click the link, put omega-3 index, and realize just how important the omega-3 index is to your prediction, your risk of chronic disease. It's a key indicator referenced by health authorities all over the world. So once you have that information, you've done this test, this objective scientific test, you know where you're at. And then you have the power to make a choice. And that's what the world needs more of. It needs more informed choice. You need to be able to make better decisions about your own health so that you're empowered to improve it and live better. And I think all too often, you know, there are products, not just in the supplement industry, just across the range. You know, we're exposed to 5,000 adverts a day. It's overwhelming. And lots of them, from breakfast cereals to cans of soup, make all kinds of crazy claims. And people just buy them with kind of faith. Go, that must mean something. But never are they held accountable. There's never a time when there's a breakfast cereal that says fortified with K, D, C, boom, boom, boom. And you go, okay, let's measure it. Give me a test. Let me see how my nutrition status has changed by eating your sugary bowl of chaos every single morning. You know, they're never held accountable. So when you've got a business, when you've got a company like Zinzino, who is going, we want to be accountable, do a test, and then see whether or not this makes any difference to your health. That's game changing. When there's an old saying in the military and there's an old saying in sport, is if they go zig, we should go zag. The whole industry's gone zig, and Zinzino went zag. We'll be really accountable. There you go. Take a test and let's see what changes. So that's powerful, isn't it? And that's why.
That's the powerful thing, really, Colin, when you look at that, Dr. Colin, that it puts the accountability back in the person's armor. So it's now their decision to read the results, because it's all, you know, very basic for you to read. It's been detailed perfectly. But then you can take the action to go the next steps, to do the 120-day cycle of your red blood cells and introducing the balanced oil, either the balanced oil plus or our premium oil. So let's talk about the heart side of it, okay? Because we can now test it. Now let's talk about, you know, 3 key factors, okay? Let's start on that heart. What are some of the things you've seen or being referred with, okay, that you've seen with the heart action through, you know, the balanced oil and having the test result?
Well, I think we have to tread carefully in this area.
Yes.
We have to stay true. We have to stay true to the clinical evidence and the research.
Yep.
Now, from a preventative point of view, I know there's doctors and GPs and colleagues on here tonight. There's not a GP, there's not a doctor in the world that really doesn't encourage their patients to take olive oil on a daily basis now, because we know the antioxidants, we know the anti-inflammatory properties of olive oil, and the extra virgin olive oil, the better, the higher the polyphenol count of the olive oil, the better for the profound effect that it has. And this literally protects the heart. So we start to bring about positive changes in fats, we reduce our saturates, we see changes in cholesterol. So from a preventative point of view, that reduction of inflammation, systemic inflammation, that change in blood fats and blood sugars does wonders for lowering the risk of multiple potential heart conditions. And also, to a certain extent, and we see this across the literature, has even a more profound effect than that with regards to what you might describe as strengthening of the heart. So particularly for people who want to become active and physically active and exercise. So we see this normalization of heart function. Now, a lot of the research that looks at the corrective capability of the olive oil and the omega-3, we're going to delve into the omega-3 as well here, has been quite really profound, but it's still gaining momentum. So there's no consensus at yet. But when we start to draw all that data together, and in fact, I've got a recent one here that just showed, this was particularly with regards to the omega-3. And this was 1 gram a day provided as fish oil. And this was for 4 months. This reduced atrial tachyarrhythmias by 59% and burden by 67%. But the interesting thing is that when that was discontinued, when a person stopped consuming it, then they reverted back to baseline. So even in a corrective capacity, there is more and more data coming through now that is showing the profound positive impact that having sufficient amount of EPA and DHA has on cardiovascular health. So for sure, we know, long-standing, we reduce risk. Again, go and have a look at the omega-3 index. Go and look how sensitive that is. We need people to be above 8%, aiming towards 10% on their index to get the most benefits, particularly in the area of cardiovascular health. But now there's this real groundswell of evidence that's coming through that is showing its corrective, its remedial properties as well. And as someone who's been in around the research game long enough, what happens in this is the research gains momentum. And then once the momentum is gained, we arrive at consensus. Once we have consensus, then we see an update to the EFSA claims and guidelines. So that process is already ticking and away in place. And across the, I mean, I'm digressing a little bit, but for years and years, we studied the impact of the Mediterranean diet. And what did we whittle it down to? The sheer impact of that daily amount of that high polyphenol and the direct access to those rich omega-3s.
Outstanding. Now let's talk about the immune bases. Okay, so again, I talk about three building blocks within the omega family and the chains. Number one, obviously, having the heart function right. As you know, the heart is normally the last thing that goes on you. When it's done, it's nearly all over, okay? But there's some building blocks like the immune system, and especially with some of the airborne diseases we have that are prevalent today, can we talk about how you can build your immune system as well with these additional polyphenols and the omegas that we have in our balanced products?
Yeah, I mean, the immune system, I spend a lot of time looking at immunology and immune function across the board, really. And it's interesting, hasn't it? Because the past 18, maybe 20 months now has made the world realize how important their immune system is. I say this a lot, and there's a reason why I'm going to say it here. For 20 years, I've been saying to people, you should take vitamin D. It supports the normal function of your immune system. We don't get enough exposure to sunlight, particularly Northern Hemisphere, 100% if you live in the UK, all those kind of things. And some people listened, a lot of people didn't. And then we had this wave of information that came out at the onset of the COVID pandemic. And then my inbox and my phone didn't stop. Call, vitamin D, it's really important. Where can I get it? How much should I take? I should have vitamin D. Tell me more about vitamin D. Well, on the same lines, the world will start to come to realize the importance of omega-3. I was having a conversation about this with a clinical colleague of mine just 2 days ago. The world will come to realize the importance of the omega-3. So with regards to the immune system, let's look at balanced oil. It's got high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil. It's got omega-3 in it, the DHA and the EPA, and it has vitamin D. So when you look at an immune support product, balanced oil is pretty much as perfect as it gets. Those omega-3s, the EPA and the DHA, and in this instance, particularly the EPA with its anti-inflammatory properties, these are bringing about a control of that unwanted level of kind of continued, what some people call chronic inflammation. So this really takes some of the burden off the immune system. But if you look at the more recent data, what we see is that when there is a sufficient amount of the omega-3s available, well, we actually see a positive increase of the B cells, the immune B cell production, the white blood cell, the B cell. So this is vital. This is a key aspect of how our immune system functions normally. And it's supported by the right amount, the presence of those vital omega-3s and that vitamin D. So you're immune, you are your immune system. How vulnerable you are from a health point of view, how well you recover, how well you respond, how well you function is all testament to your immune system. If you are keen about exercise, your immune system is what enables you to recover, to adapt and get fitter and faster and further. If it's purely down to your health status, which is the most important status, your immune system is central to that. It's central to it. And so putting those things in place that are going to support its normal function should be a priority, should be your absolute priority on a daily basis.
And the key thing as well that I see, and it's the brain, okay? As I say, that heart function, the immune system, and your brain function. It's quite interesting that when I see, and I have seen thousands of the balance test reports that have come back, just literally mind-blowing results when I see the before and then the after. Just that alertness that happens by getting some amazing balanced oil into the system over the 120 days. And that's with the Balanced Oil Plus or the Premium Plus oil. The results that I see with people just becoming more clarity and just being able to think, they pick their phone up and they're straight away dialing the number. They're not thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, I have to dial Colin, okay? Now it's just, yep, I'm dialing Colin. The amount of people that say, Rob, I'm thinking sharper now. I can recall things so much clearer and with clarity. Can we just touch on that? Then the next question, which I get so many times, and the chat lines, hitting me with it. What age group? So let's talk about the brain first up, and then what age groups, in your professional opinion, can actually consume omega oils or the balanced oils?
I'll answer that one there quickly. Every age group, but we'll come back on as to why that might be. So it's really interesting hearing that kind of, that feedback from yourself. That's what we call anecdotal feedback, and it's important that I don't get too lost in all that kind of stuff. But it's always interesting to hear that kind of feedback and how people experience the changes. And that's really related to the individual. Powerful stuff, though. But when we look at this from a scientific point of view, well, actually, you guys, once again, Australia leading the way. I do love Australia. I really do. So just recently, you've led the way, brought about a change in your health guidelines with regards to women who want to be pregnant or who are pregnant. And you've written into your health guidelines, into your legislation, that they should supplement with omega-3 because of the importance of the DHA on the brain development in utero and the first, particularly that key 12 to 18 months once the child is born, brain development. It is important to note what gets a bit lost in that conversation is that the DHA, which is the primary fat in the brain, is key, but the EPA is a part of what facilitates the uptake and regulation of the DHA. So it's not about just having DHA. You need a blended approach of sufficient amount of DHA and EPA. So look at every single study. Someone look at the strongest EFSA claims that are approved with regards to DHA and EPA and brain development and cognitive function and mental alertness and mood state. The list is probably one of the longest lists that there are for EFSA approved claims. We know it's critical for child development in the womb and the first 12 to 18 months. They need to have sufficient amounts of DHA and EPA for brain development. An interesting point, which is related to this, not everything is cause and effect, but I do ponder this a lot. Over the past 40 years, we've seen an increase in obesity, chronic disease. We've seen a decrease in IQ. Average IQ, folks, sadly, has gone down over the past 40 years. And we've also seen a decrease in omega-3 availability through the diet. And if you look at any of the research in the area regards to the positive impact that it has, it's the primary fat of your brain. It's what your brain is made of and protected by. It's a key indicator. And then when you look at those studies with regards to mood, behavior status, all across developmental periods through teenage into early adulthood. And then when we look at late adulthood, I would say to anybody on this call who is 55 plus, if there's no other reason why you would take the omega-3, to take the balance oil, than cognitive function, that's the best, that's reason enough to remain cognitively alert, functioning, better mood state, that in itself. And the research supports and backs all of that. And as we age, sadly, the brain is a bit like a muscle. You've got to flex it, you've got to stimulate it every single day. And it is subject to, like a lot of the body, to deterioration with age. And for some people, that can be quite pronounced as they get older. So we really do want to work well, because the two things that are going to impact on your quality of life as you age are your physical independence and your cognitive function, how well you think and how well you can move. And we want to preserve both aspects. And remember, the mind decides and the body follows. So if we're not thinking right, we're not going to get the movement part right. So we really do want to take a proactive approach to our dietary needs of DHA and EPA, particularly as we get older. And then that takes me right back to your question. So what age? You need it in the womb, and you need it right up until the day you check out. So everywhere across that spectrum of age is where you're going to benefit from having the right amounts of those vital omega, those essential fats. Remember, there's only two components dietary-wise that we call essential. We have the essential amino acids, the proteins that we're made of, and we have the essential fats, the DHA and the EPA. We have such confidence and faith, and we recognize the importance in them, that we called them essential. And sadly, too many people still don't even realize that. So they are all across your lifespan. It's going to help you think, retain your capacity to think constructively, creatively. It's key, and key to your child development. So anyone who's on here who's considering having a child or has a child, make sure that they are benefiting from this.
And I know, guys, here in Australia, and it's unfortunate, but we do have some rules on labelling, okay, specifically here in Australia. It does say if you're under the age of 15, you must seek your medical advisor's advice whether you can consume olive oil and also omega oil. So please make sure you do that. But in the rest of the world, guys, okay, as we wrap out with the last 5 minutes, I just want to go back. A balance test that holds the omega-3 industry accountable for the inferior products they sell on a daily basis. Then all the way around the world, we have available our balanced oil in premium and also balanced oil plus mode. Dr. Colin, we then have what we call the health protocol available in most countries, okay? And we're talking about the Extend Plus, the Viva Plus, and then the Xenobiotic. Could you just tap on that in the last 3 to 4 minutes as we close out the call?
Yeah, absolutely. Funnily enough, these past few weeks, I've been doing a lot of work on other aspects of dietary needs, and that's where the Extend Plus comes into it. You know, the average person, their diet alters day by day. You know, people have diet variation. It's inherent. We eat different types of food. We have different types of main meal. And through that, often there are changes in our nutritional intake because of the nature of the meal we have. And also, I don't want us to get bogged down in it here, but due to the nature of the types of foods that we have, there are questions around, well, the nutrient density of it, how much is actually in there, what's available to us. And that's where a product like Extend and Extend Plus comes into its own. Because to me, it's the most intelligent multivitamin in the world, bar none. When you look at the formulation of what's been put together, and for me, it's a way of a person being able to tick a box and be able to say, okay, you know, if you're someone who's got a whole food diet, you cook every single meal you eat from fresh, you don't use any convenience foods, all the rest of it, then probably one a day is enough to just top up and make sure you're hitting those vital micro vitamin needs, that multivit need. For somebody else, and it's about taking a bit of a, you know, reality check for ourselves. For somebody else who's got a bit more of a kind of reliance on some convenience food still, for whatever reason, then you're probably going to be looking at taking 2, maybe 3. So it's a real good way of adjusting the parameters of your dietary and making nutrients in the diet every single day. On top of that, and Rena said this at the start, it's going to come back to haunt me, this, you are what you absorb. I was actually doing this whole writing up a research piece yesterday on this about the villi and the microvilli and how the body absorbs nutrients as it passes through digestion into absorption through the gut. You know, we can digest a lot, we can eat a lot, but we don't always absorb it. And a part of the problem there is we tend to get in our own way. When we take a prebiotic, which Xenobiotic is, we actually are feeding the gut microbiota, that tropical rainforest, that diverse and complex environment that exists in your stomach, the center of your human universe. And when we do that by feeding the gut flora, then we enhance our capacity to absorb foods better. And the better we can absorb those foods, the more benefits we derive from those good foods and those good nutrients. So that's why the health protocol is the health protocol. Key nutrients, the vehicle to be able to absorb key nutrients through the Xenobiotic. Most people's diet is low. Sadly, it's low in dietary fibers. And then we have the Viva. You know, my background is chronobiology, spent years and years looking at sleep and study and fatigue. And we have this epidemic of sleep crisis. Most people really struggling to sleep and to get quality sleep. And there are multiple issues around that. The busyness of day-to-day life, this inability to switch from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic nervous system and disengage and relax and shut down those neurotransmitters sufficiently. And that's what Viva helps with. That's the part that Viva plays. So you have this protocol. The other one that's not mentioned in that actually is one of my favorite products is Protect. At times of increased stress, whether you're traveling, whether you've increased your exercise, whether you're busy at work, Protect is such a clever product. You know, with those beta glucans, with vitamin C and vitamin D, there again to support the normal functioning of your immune system and help you through at times when we're increased stress, then we need increased nutrient support. It makes perfect sense. So very, very clever, focused products. And that's where Zinzino dominates. And that's where they will always be. We are never going to be a company that has 500 different products. What we will always be is a company that has really well-considered, research-backed, focused products that actually address real-world issues. Not interested in just snake oil, selling things for the sake of it, but actually providing products that makes lives easier and makes lives healthier, and therefore gives people access to better quality of life.
And I think, Colin, the key thing there as well, and you know, you've said it a number of times, that part of the reason why you came on board was the synergistic effect of all these products actually working on a cellular level and working together internal of the body. Very, very critical, okay? And I know once you saw the quality of the product, saw the science, it then became the product of choice for you as a person to take on a daily basis. Absolutely.
My whole house does. I've got 3 children, married, myself. And it has been for some time now. And whenever I recommend it to someone, a friend, my guidance is always start and don't stop. Just take this and it becomes a natural part of your daily routine. The same way that you drink water, you go and have a cup of coffee, you wash your face, you do what you do. That balance oil, which is, you know, for most people, it's this much. You sip that once a day and you've ticked a huge health box. This really is, the world has changed. I'm a food first nutritionist. I'm a registered nutritionist here in the UK with the British Dietetics Association. We need to look at how we eat, but we also need to recognize the world has changed and we need to take 21st century food technology and put it to best use so that we can derive effective solutions that fit with our lifestyle. And that's exactly what Zinzino is doing. That's where it's positioned.
Fantastic, Dr. Colin. And also you have the privilege, you're interviewing the head man, the CEO of Vitis Laboratory later this month. So that's going to be a sensational call, and you'll hear all about the Zinzino balance test and how it is actually utilized or put to the test through the laboratory. So that's going to be a great call. Watch out for that, guys, as we go. Dr. Colin, can you give a 1-minute closeout as we close out the call?
I'd just like to thank everyone for being here. This alone, and the most powerful thing for me since I've arrived at Zinzino is saying that, you know, that there is such attention and there is such a focus on people wanting to get health right and to make more powerful and informed choices. Anytime anybody attends something like this and listens, and feedbacks and considers it and starts to think about where they're at and where the people around them are at, it makes a huge difference on what we're all trying to achieve. So thanks for that. I think I've joined Zinzino at a point where we're just at the start of the big difference that it's about to make. And it's a really exciting time to be involved. And I think that we're all learning every single day. We're refining and we're taking a Kaizen mentality to every single thing we do. So here's to the future. Let's get healthier and happier and progress together as we change not only our own lives, but those that we care about around us.
Fantastic, Dr. Colin. Again, thank you so much. It's that army of customers that are out there sharing this incredible product around the world in all the countries that it is available. So again, thank you so much tonight for your time, energy and effort on 40 minutes with us. Absolutely, truly appreciate it in sharing the information that you've got about this incredible company, Zinzino, and its products. Thank you so much, guys, for listening. We look forward to seeing you next week, same time. Dr. Idris Latera, coming from Melbourne, Australia. He's an in-practice doctor that will be talking about some of the test results that he's seen in practice using the Zinzino Balance Test and the Zinzino Balance Store Plus. Thank you so much, Dr. Colin Robertson, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye now. Stay well.